evidence for them to be to have if they for some other reason don't sit an exam. So we're actually doing two things, and that's not, it's quite a difficult task to do. So to actually support that, we've also then looked at how we do our PPEs and actually changed that. In a normal year, we would have had a second PPE, and that would have been our final preparation. But for us to actually ensure we have enough evidence, and actually evidence of high enough quality to award the students the grade that they deserve, we've actually split into two mini PPEs where we actually will be assessing them on content they've taught, and would actually make it easier for them also to revise. Now, we're not going to tell them exactly what questions they're going to have, but it will be on content that they've been taught before. And that should actually be a great support for them. And subject areas are actually very much working towards actually ensuring that they are well prepared. There's not a huge amount of time left because we've got about 4 weeks, and they're going to be at the PPE, and I'll actually talk about the dates. And after that, there's about 5 weeks, and there's going to be a second PPE, and then about 4 weeks, and they're actually going to be doing the exam. So key things is there is some changes to some of the subjects. So literature, history, and geography has got some content that's been removed. Maths will have a formula sheet, and I've actually had a look at that, and they'll be issued that. That's actually in great detail. It'll be great support for them if they actually learn how to use that formula sheet effectively, and the same as well for physics and combined science. Now, we will have all the detail about what adaptations there's going to be by the 7th of February. And actually for our final PPE, we'll make sure that all of those are fully incorporated. Now, after February half term, there'll be a formal exam. It's PPE. It's going to be literally half what we would expect it to have been. They'll do it under exam conditions, externally vigilated, content that has been taught. And so that shouldn't have been February on that one. Actually, after the April half term, so mid-April, we would actually have the second PPE. And that'll actually also be on content that's been taught, and actually be a bit more focusing on some of the content between these two PPEs. But it will also be half the size of what the previous PPE would have been. And the summer exam starts on the 16th of May. So it's actually not a very long time. If you go and count, we count the other day, I think something like 14 weeks, and actually that they'll be doing the exams. They'll be done with the Key Stage 4. And on one side, it's actually quite frightening, but also it actually tells us we have to be really focused, and it's quite important for us to be working very hard in terms of ensuring they are well prepared, and they also don't have time to actually be wasting. Every lesson now really counts, and that's actually really important for us to make sure that we make use of the time in the best possible way. Now, we have a number of interventions running, and we'll revise that at a later stage, but we've also looked at how else we can support your child, and we're going to be running a number of sessions, subject-specific sessions, where they'll go through nice and short. It'll be about maximum half an hour, where subject area is going to talk you through exactly how to use the resources now for your child, how to use the resources for this subject area, where they've actually, a lot of things like maths has got Hegarty Maths. We've got a free of charge tutor that'll talk to them through every single topic, and actually they'll talk you through how to use that to maximize the outcomes of the students. So we've got these planned so far. We're actually going to have a regular thing on a weekly basis for every subject to actually do something like that to ensure we really share with you and with your child how to actually get the most out of what we provide them, because there is such a host of resources that having intervention sessions is one form of support, but actually there is a load that's available outside of that. I'm going to hand over to Ms. Larkin.
Thank you very much for that. So hopefully you guys were scribbling down some of those key dates there for the summer upcoming exams, and of course those PPEs that we've got in a few weeks' time, and then going back to what Mr. Vermaak said about those subject-specific parent workshops that we're going to hold from next week. Hopefully they'll be incredibly useful. What we'll do in terms of how you access those, we'll make sure that that gets put into an email for you with all the links so that you can just join like you have done this evening, and you can dip in and out of obviously of the ones that are useful to you and your child. So how do we actually then go about getting revision ready? Because we can have all the dates, we can have all the logistics, but how do we actually get ready for the exams? Now, I'm going to run through a few things with you that we've done with our students already, but just to make sure that you guys are in the loop as well and you know exactly how to access these resources. So the first thing I want to kick off with is something that I hope lots of you have already seen and already accessed, but just to give you a quick reminder that we do have a wonderful or two wonderful GCSE and A Level microsites that have been specifically made by our subject teachers for your child. Okay, so we have a GCSE one where year 10 and year 11 students can access that, and we also have an A Level one, of course, for year 12 and 13 students. Now, these have been made by our teachers for our students specifically, so this is not something that you can just get just by Googling sort of standard revision questions. This is something that our staff have actually made. I'm just going to do a very, very quick demo of how you can use this and how you can access it. And of course, you can find this microsite by going via our school website, going onto the revision resources tab, and it's linked there for you. Your child has also had this sent in an email to them, and this has also been sent out to parents. So just really quickly, I'm just going to talk you through how you access this, and I'm just going to make sure that I am sharing the right tab with you as well. So I'm just going to share the microsite for you now and show you how to use it. So hopefully everybody can see, or starting to be able to see, the microsite in front of them. And I'm just going to scroll through how you can access that and how you can use this site. So can everyone see that?
Yeah.
Yeah, they can. Okay, so I'm just going to make this so I can actually see it myself now as well, and talk you through step by step how you go about using it. Oh no, whoops, here it is. Okay, so this is the home screen, and here you'll just find that it just gives you a bit of a run through as to what is on the home screen itself. And I'm just going to click through a few of the tabs for you just to show you step by step what you can access. So once you click through, you'll be on the home screen, and along the top area of the website, you'll see there's lots of different headings. Now we have revision templates, we've got workshop information, and we've got all of the subjects as well that your son or daughter might study at school. Now, the first place I'd go is I'd take a look at the revision template section. And on here, if you scroll down, we have templates that you can download, that you can print off, or you can use e-copies of for your revision. Okay, so if your son or daughter is struggling and they don't know how to actually go and apply their revision, they can get onto the templates and they can look at the explanations of those revision techniques, and they can download and print the resources. Okay, now when it comes to actually accessing subject specific material, you can see along the top sort of corner of this website, we've got all of our subjects listed. And if you can't see it, just click on the more section in the top right hand corner. And let's say your son or daughter studies history and they want to get cracking with their history revision. They visit the history webpage. I'm just going to click on it now, and they can scroll down, and then you can see there that we've got all of the PLCs, the personalised learning checklist for history. We've got a GCSE reading list that's linked there as well. And really, really handily, we've also got a list of and links to all of our revision guides, the ones that we've made, so the RVHS ones, and a link as well to the actual textbook itself. So if you click on those links, you'll see a PDF copy of all of those things there, and your child can either use it on their phone whilst revising, or on their Chromebook, or on their tablet, or of course you can click on that, you can print it off, you can download it, and then you can use it obviously alongside your revision notes. So this is an incredibly useful resource. What it means is that your son or daughter doesn't have to go around searching on numerous websites and web pages looking for what they believe to be the correct thing. They know that if their teacher has uploaded it on here, then it must be the correct resource, and it must be the correct thing to be using alongside their revision. So as you can see, every single subject has a tab. Please encourage your child to use this, and we've put this together for them specifically, and we really want students to get the most out of it. Okay, now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start talking about how they can actually put this into practice, because it's all good and well knowing where the resources are, but how do you actually then go about using these? So you've got the microsite, you've had a look at the PLCs, you've had a look at the textbooks and the e-copies of the revision guides, but how do you actually then put that into practice? So I'm just going to talk briefly here about the questions that we get asked quite a lot when it comes to revision. And one of the main questions that we get asked is, how do I, as a student, address gaps in my knowledge that I may have due to learning from home? And we hear this question quite a lot from our year 11s and our year 13s, who potentially are quite anxious, quite stressed about having knowledge gaps, and they're worried about this coming up in the exam, and they don't really know what to do. Now, our advice is to straight away get started with the PLC. Now, students know what they are. They know how to access them. They're all on the microsite, as I've just said. And the majority of students have hard copies printed out for them in their books and their folders. But what we tend to find is that students don't actually then know how to use them. So they know where they are, but they actually don't know how to action them. Now, what we'd like them to do is to get onto the subjects that they'd like to revise and actually sit there and go through the PLC and rag it. So when they see an element of the course that they'd be really, really stressed, if that came up as an exam question, they've got to mark it as red. Amber, they'd feel okay, but wouldn't be too confident. And green, they'd be really, really happy if this came up in the exam. And they must do this for all of their subjects before they can actually start tailoring and planning their revision. So like I said, get onto the microsite, download the PLC and really sit there and start to rag the PLC. And that's our top tip. And that's what we'd like all students to be able to do before even embarking on their revision. What I'll also say is I'm going to talk about Adapt, an online app, in a minute. And actually Adapt has got a tool on there where you can rag PLCs online as well. So you don't have to sit there with a hard copy. And in fact, you can do that via this app. So I'm going to be talking about that in a moment. But like I said, the PLC is key to beginning with the revision. And it's key for students to be able to see, well, if I do have gaps in my knowledge because of X, Y, and Z, how do I actually then go about closing those and being really proactive with it rather than worrying about it? So as I said previously, I'm going to talk through an app now that will be able to help your child in accessing PLCs, but also to be able to help them to create a bespoke revision timetable. Now, I've been through the theory with you previously on what interleaving is, and we've covered this in many parent workshops previously, and we've also covered this with our students on numerous occasions. But just to remind everybody that when we ask our students to approach creating a revision timetable, we ask them to consider the process of interleaving. As you can see from the diagram here, we've got two ways of setting up a timetable. You can either do it in a blocked way, where you cover each topic one by one in isolation, and you tick it off your list and you say that you've done it and you don't go back to it ever again because you've compartmentalized that and you've done it and you want to move on. But we actually would rather our students do it in the interleaved way, where they take their topics, they slim them down, so they streamline them into smaller chunks, as you can see from the second diagram here, and you repeat that over a period of time. So it makes it much more manageable. It's also making use of the PLC by picking subtopics from the actual topic lists themselves, and it's repeating it over a period of time. So we would really, really like our students to use this. And as I said, I'm going to share now an idea on how students can put this into practice by using a completely free online app that we've shared with the students in school, but we'd really, really like parents to know about as well. And the name of the app is Adapt, and it is completely free to download. So if you've got an iPhone or an Android, whatever you've got, you can download this on your phone. In fact, I know quite a lot of teachers have got this on their phone as well, and it's something that's incredibly useful when planning an interleave timetable. So in terms of how you actually use Adapt, then it's nice and straightforward. Step one is obviously to download it. So get onto your app store, type in Adapt, and it will be the first thing that comes up. As soon as you've downloaded it, it will ask your child to enter the subjects that they study, so either GCSE or A Level. So they need to make sure they've either ticked GCSE or A Level, and then they enter the subjects one by one that they study. Now, just want to say as well, just a little tip for you, that they will also need the exam board information from the microsite. So I just want to say that they need to make sure that when they're entering their subjects, they have the list, they have the actual list of the exam board information next to each one as well. If you don't know what exam board your son or daughter is on for a particular subject, all of that information is on the home page of the microsite. So I would also suggest having that open when you download app and when you enter all your subjects. Now, once you've downloaded this and you've entered the subjects and you've entered the exam board, the brilliant thing about Adapt is that it creates your very own interleave timetable, but on your phone, and it does it all for you. So rather than you having to print out a copy like the one that's on the screen, which obviously you can do if this is how you prefer to do it, it will actually create one on your phone, and it will send your son or daughter alerts of when they are meant to be revising and what specifically are they meant to be revising. Because what it does is it links the timetable to the exam board, it takes all the topics from the exam board, and it literally churns them all out and creates an interleave timetable specifically for your son or daughter. And it's really great because they can tick off when they've done it, they feel that sense of achievement, and it keeps them really, really organised. And it also means that they don't miss out on any content that's being covered. It means that they can't miss anything out because it literally links everything to the exam board. So as I've said, Adapt is an absolutely brilliant tool. We'd really, really recommend that students are using this. It is completely free, and it's a really easy tool to use in terms of creating an interleaved revision timetable. So moving on from Adapt then, I just wanted to briefly cover a couple of strategies that you might want to work on with your child at home in terms of being exam ready. So they've got on the microsite, they've got the PLCs, they've downloaded Adapt, they've done all that prep, but they still don't feel exam ready, okay? And I'm just going to whiz through these really quickly, but a couple of things that we would like to make a note of or make a point out of is that our students need to start thinking like an examiner. Now, I actually went through all of these with our whole year 13 cohort a few weeks ago now, and I know that lots of them found it really useful to try and put themselves in the shoes of an examiner, because if they do this, then they'll feel much more confident when approaching the exam. So we'd like students to learn how to identify the content and command words in the question. That's something that we teach really explicitly here, but it's something that we want our parents to understand as well, that we're asking our students when they approach an exam to circle the content and circle the command words so they know exactly what they need to do. We also want students to be really aware of the difference between level marking and point marking. And again, they will know that based on the subjects that they take for GCSE and A Level, and they should know exactly, well, what do I need to do to get into that particular level? What am I doing in terms of how many points I need to make to gain the marks that I need to be successful in this exam? Of course, they need to find out how to effectively plan and structure long written approaches. They should have structures in place for all of their extended writing, and we really need our students to follow these structures and to incorporate this into their revision, because it's all good and well revising the content and doing quizzes and making cue cards and doing Cornell notes and Busan mind maps and all those great things that we do, but they must be able to then apply that to the exam. And lastly, time management is hugely important, and I'm going to show you a quick way in which you can help your son or daughter in terms of identifying how much time they should spend on an individual question in the exam, because all of these things will make your child feel so much more confident when they get to that exam room, because they've got a bit of a strategy rather than turning up and thinking, I'm just going to put everything I know on the page. They've really got to think like an examiner. So I'm just going to wrap up really before I go on to one more little app that I'm just going to recommend to you, just by saying that this is a really worthwhile task to go through with your son or daughter in regards to having an exam strategy. And again, we did go through this with our year 13s, and I also went through this with lots of year 11s on the first day of term this year as well. Now, it's nice and simple. It's essentially just working through this table, but imagining that you're going to write all your subjects in that first column and sitting with your son or daughter to actually work out, well, how many papers do I have for that subject? That's the first thing to ascertain. And again, your child should know this, and if they don't, it's something that they really do need to find out so that they feel exam ready. To work out, well, what does the exam actually look like? How many questions is on the exam paper? Yeah. And then obviously looking to the question structures themselves. So how many marks is each question worth? And what did my teacher tell me to do to be successful to gain those marks? And that's looking at the planning side of things. And again, for our subjects that do require extended writing, this is a huge thing in terms of being exam ready. And then lastly, where does the timing come into all of this? How long were they told to spend on the 16-mark question, the 10-mark question, the 8-mark question? And again, if you can do this and fill this in for all of the subjects that your child studies, they will go into that exam room knowing a bit about what's going to come up. They're not going to know exactly what the questions are, but they'll know the style of the questions, the structure of the paper, and how long they should spend on extended writing questions in particular. And I think this is something that lots of students will find really helpful. And as I said, I believe it will help to reduce anxiety before getting into the exam. So just lastly then, lots of students ask this, well, okay, I've done what you've asked me to do and I've done lots of revision, I've made my flashcards, I've done this, I've done that, but how can I actually perfect my exam technique? And there's just an app that, again, I'd like to share with you. This is also a really, really good one. And again, it is completely free and it is called My Past Papers. So what lots of students do is they get to the point where they are definitely ready to start accessing past papers and utilising that within their revision. Okay, so they've revised lots of the content, they've done all of that, and now it's about looking at past papers. Now, this app, as I said, all you need to do is go onto your app store and type in My Past Papers and download it, and it will ask you to tick the subjects that you do. So I tried this last night myself, and you can go through the subjects and you can tick them. Again, just be careful. You have to make sure that you've either ticked GCSE or A Level, and you also have to make sure that, again, you've got the exam boards to hand. So again, go onto the microsite if you need to. And once you've done that, it's just like magic. It will literally churn out all of the previous exam papers for you, and you can literally download them. So I tried this myself last night, and I downloaded about 3 history A Level papers and had a little look through them. So it's a brilliant app. It's really, really useful. And it's great to incorporate using past papers into your revision, because then you know exactly what you're expecting and it helps you to identify which questions you might need to work a bit more on. So again, that's a great app to download. Okay, I'll also link this video that you just saw a minute ago that I just flicked past there. It's a video on how to find past papers. Again, if you're struggling, it's just another tool to do that. But when I share the presentation with you, you can always watch that video if you're struggling with identifying past paper content. So just to wrap up before I pass over to Miss Preston, who's going to be talking to you about some general advice now on the run up to this PPE season, just a few golden nuggets, pieces of information that I think are useful to take away before I move on. So please do encourage the use of the microsite. It's a brilliant tool for students, of course, and it's also really helpful for you guys as parents to be able to see what sort of content each subject is covering. The PLCs are incredibly useful. Please get, if your son or daughter doesn't know where to start, they must start with them. They're a great tool in terms of identifying gaps and also, of course, identifying strengths and not wasting as much time on revising those strengths, because obviously there's only so many hours in a day to revise. Please, if your son or daughter hasn't already, get onto the Adapt app, talk to them about it, ask them how it's going. You can even download it yourself as well, and you can get the same alerts. It's a great tool. Get onto the My Past Papers app as well. Again, it's a really, really simple tool to use. And lastly, just going back to that idea of thinking like an examiner, going back to the idea of filling in that table and actually going through the structure of the paper will make your child feel so much more confident and reduce any anxiety that they might have before they enter the exam hall. So I'm going to hand over to Miss Preston now, who's going to talk you through some advice, like I said, on the run up to this period of time. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. It's great to see so many of you here. And I just wanted to talk briefly to you a little bit about how we can support at home. This is coming from a little bit from my heart as well. The following year is going to be difficult all round. I think I've got a child in year 11 and a child in year 13. So a lot of these things I've been taking home, taking note of, and obviously we'll be using at home as well. So the kinds of things that I wanted to talk through with you today are how we best support and trying to help our kids beat exam stress and support them through what is a difficult time, but what is also can be a really, really positive time and a really big step towards their future and where they head on to after Roding Valley. So looking out for signs of stress, first of all, the kinds of things that probably most of us would recognise, our kids worrying a lot, feeling tense, complaining of stomach pains or headaches, not sleeping very well, extra irritable, not enjoying food very much, or maybe eating more than they usually do, being negative, low mood, and perhaps feeling really quite despondent about the future. And all those things are absolutely perfectly normal signs of stress, particularly around exams and examination periods. It's really key, obviously, for our kids that they find that they have someone that they can talk to, get support and ask questions to. and I'll talk a little bit further about that in just a moment. So thinking about where we can start supporting, making sure our children eat well. I guess that all of these things are pretty obvious, but given that lots of kids have got a special place in their hearts for high fat and high sugar and caffeine drinks and food and energy drinks and so on, all of those things give them that very quick high, but then they come crashing down and it makes them irritable and moody, and on top of perhaps a lack of sleep, creates more and more issues for them. It's thought that teenagers probably need between 8 and 12 hours a night, and making sure that enough of those hours are on the right side of midnight. I know for a lot of us, kids are on their computers, on their gaming, they're on their TVs, their phones, whatever else. And I'm going to make an extra additional effort to make sure that those things are switched off in a good time so that my kids can unwind a little bit, try and get some decent sleep. All the best plans, eh? For us to try and be flexible during the exams, staying calm ourselves. I feel anxious for my children, and I'm sure you feel anxious for your children as well, particularly given the time that we've had. But I feel very reassured by all the things that I can see on our microsite, all the things that I can see in my kids' school bags and so on. And everything is in place for them for whatever is to come over the next few months. So staying flexible, I think, is really key. These exams they're not going to go on forever. It just feels like it at this moment. Helping our students study, having somewhere comfortable or somewhere quiet at home. I know that is often a difficult thing for parents to organise, and supporting them with their revision, reminding them that they perhaps need to take some little breaks, making them a drink or just chatting to them or something, so that they're taking a proper 5-minute break away from revision that they're doing, and talking to students about reminding them why they're doing it, what their goals are, what they hope to achieve from it, and generally staying really positive about it. Obviously, exam nerves, absolutely normal, absolutely usual. It's a natural physical reaction, and we need to try and make sure that we are getting our kids to channel these in a positive way and trying to make things all less scary for them. And the scare is taken out so much by being aware and being absolutely clear of what they're going to see and what they're going to deal with, which is why things like ADAPT and the PLCs and the microsite and everything that's put in place, that there isn't going to be anything other than that information. There's not going to be anything that they haven't studied or is new. Encouraging exercise, taking those regular breaks and making sure they go out for a run, take the dog out, go and have a kick around with mates. Just go and do something, swimming, cycling, whatever it is, but get out of the house, get some fresh air, try and expel some of that pent-up energy and some of that stress around revision. One of the things I'm going to find really tough not to do is adding pressure. I need to make sure that I'm listening to what my two are saying, trying to give them a support and avoid criticising the way that they are doing things. My aim is to be reassuring and positive, and I would hope that will help support them. Making time for treats. So in between revision or perhaps a bit of a plan, something organised for the end of the exams, both lots of PPEs and the summer exams, might be something nice to look forward to. And just finally, to talk about when to actually look perhaps a little bit further beyond any concerns that it's more than normal stress or usual stress around exams. So if your child has a sort of persistent low mood or significant anxiety, our suggestion for the first port of call would be go and see your GP. It's a great place to start. They're well used to seeing students and talking them through things and offering advice as well. And one of the really great places I found for information, not just for mental health, but also for exam stress and for making sure that I'm trying to provide the best possible rounded, balanced diets and all of those things, is using the NHS website, and that's easily accessed, www.nhs.uk. There are other signposting supports that are open to your families and to your students, and that is academic mentors, subject teachers, obviously Mr. Price, me, Miss Wheaton, Mr. Worry, obviously Mr. Vermack, Miss Larkin, and any other staff here. Always happy to speak to students or speak to parents to reassure or to just to point in the right direction. We have an ongoing email here, which is iamnotok@rodingvalley.net, and that is manned regularly, and responses go out very quickly from that. And we encourage students to make contact should they need to speak to somebody. In terms of contact details for anyone you might want to speak to, it's their initial, their name, @rodingvalley.net, and a full list of these can be found on the website under our contacts. I would like to take this opportunity to wish our Year 11s and our Year 13s the very best of luck. I know you're going to be absolutely amazing, and we will be as proud as we've ever been of our students and this year's cohort. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you very much for listening. And as we said, this recording will be sent out to all parents alongside the presentation with any linked resources. Thank you so much for listening. We really, really appreciate your support. Thank you.